I'm making a video to tell people the best reasons that they should vote for UKIP in the general election 2015. Now, I know that UKIP are unpopular on various topics. It seems like it's trendy to not like UKIP. Their kind of trendy dislike of UKIP is actually that they're just responding to information that they get inundated with from the media and from their peer groups. I'm going to show people this video in the hope that it might help UKIP get a few extra votes, because I feel that we're in a very precarious time on the planet politically, and I think if we keep on going towards the destination that the governments and the current elites and status quo want us to go towards, then we'll end up at the end of it, maybe even as close as the next kind of 5 to 7 years, we will end up with a completely changed world, a completely changed political system, and the system will be remade, and it will be remade in favour of people who are already the status quo, and it will be made more in their favour. So I think unless we vote in an unpopular party with unpopular ideas and policies, then it could be the end for freedom and democracy as we know it, and that could happen during my lifetime. So I just want people to know that, and I know that UKIP have got a bad reputation for things that they say and things that they have said, and I'm going to talk about that as well. I'm not going to shirk away from it, I'm going to talk about that as well. But tradition, I mean, listen, I'm Scottish, so I'm not one of UKIP's core voters. UKIP don't try and appeal to me in their core vote. Nigel Farage himself has said that over Hadrian's Wall he doesn't really expect it to get much votes, even although UKIP do have one Euro MEP, and that's David Coburn, and David Coburn himself has said that he feels that there's Scottish people they don't go about boasting that they're UKIP voters, but there is a certain percentage of UKIP voters in Scotland, and their popularity is growing. My family, they're traditional leaning left family. They probably, I mean, they at least have respect for, I think, when I talk about things, because I've talked about things which are so alien to them over a kind of long period of time, they've got to the point where they really just don't care, and they're quite open to hearing all different kinds of views and all different kinds of people's opinions and having discussions about it, and that is the essence of free speech. So fair play to them. They might not come round to what I'm talking about, but it doesn't matter, I'm still going to try. I want people to know, black and Asian people to know, that I'm not a racist at all. I'm very, very open to different types of peoples, and I'm open to learning about new cultures. I'm very interested in that. I've liked black comics, I've liked black literature, I've always liked black music. I've been influenced by these things throughout growing up when I was an adolescent, and they say that when you're an adolescent, the thing, like the music that you listen to, the things that you were into when you were an adolescent, they stay with you. It's been some kind of scientific study that's been done on that, and they've said that when you're an adolescent, the things that you listen to and you're interested in, they stay with you for the rest of your life, and it remains very powerful to you. And quite a lot of the things that I was interested in during that time period was black, as I say, black literature, black culture, black comedy, and black music. So I'm not a racist at all, and I wouldn't try and lead anyone. I'm traditionally left myself, but I wouldn't try and lead anyone down the wrong path. So I'm Scottish, I've got nothing to gain from liking UKIP. UKIP say that they want to cut down the Barnett formula. That seems fair to me. As long as the negotiations are fair, I'm quite happy to go with it, because I think that the benefits that we'll get from having UKIP in power will far outweigh anything that can currently be gained from maintaining the Barnett formula. So as I say, I'm traditionally left. I'm from a group in society that really has no reason or no motivation to like UKIP, but I'm going to explain to you why everyone should like UKIP, including traditionally leaning left people, including black and Asian people. So let's get on with it. The first thing we're talking about is the economy. A monetary policy committee member for the Bank of England is saying that UK exports to the EU are dead in the water, and that's the end of last year. He's saying that if we do have an economic recovery, it's unlikely to be export driven because our biggest trading partner is dead in the water. That's what he says. So he's backing up the information that I just found. There's no growth to be found in the EU. All our growth of our goods that we're selling, and that's how you get out of a recession. You need to sell more than you buy. That's it. That's how simple it is. Again, May last year, a UK report, a Civitas think tank there, have decided that there's no benefit from the UK being there's no trade benefit for the UK being in the EU. It has not given the UK any insider advantages in trade with other European countries. A report by social policy think tank Civitas says trade with fellow EU nations makes up no more of the UK's trade with all top economies now than it did when we first joined in 1973. So they've basically looked at the figures and they're finding that whatever business we were doing with Europe in 1973, it's just basically the same as what we're doing now. There hasn't been any growth, it's just always been the same. So they're not going to want to lose that, and we're not going to want to lose that, whether we're in the EU or not. What's worth considering is the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is actually bigger than the EU. It's got 2 billion people in it, and I think that when it comes to the Commonwealth and Ireland, for example, the relationships that Britain has with people in the Commonwealth and in Ireland, these relationships are paid for in blood. It doesn't really matter now in the present day who was at fault. It was Britain who was at fault going around doing the colonisation of the world, but that's in the past now, and we have built established relationships with these countries since colonisation. For better or worse, they've stuck together, and it is a developed relationship. We've got lots of immigrants from Ireland, we've had lots of immigrants from the Caribbean and Africa. We've got established relationships with these people, and these relationships are paid for in blood. So I think it's actually dishonourable what we're doing. We're moving, disregarding our relationships in the British Commonwealth, and we starting up with the EU, who aren't even beneficial. They've got less people, they've got less growth, and as I say, these relationships that we have in the Commonwealth are actually paid for in blood. And as I say, it's kind of, it does matter who was wrong, but it's inconsequential now going forward and in the present day who was at fault for what, because we're not at war anymore, we're not doing anything nasty to each other. But I think that we do have to honour the fact that we've had established relationships with these people over countless years, and at a time when things are starting to get good for both parties concerned, less so for Britain. You know, we're ditching them and we want to move on to the EU. I think that's wrong, because, you know, we went to these people's countries, we stole their resources, we took them on as slaves and slave labour. We established our country when we were taking their resources and treating their people unkindly during that time. I'm sure it wasn't all bad, and it wasn't all, you know, completely. Some of the stories that we might hear might be a little bit exaggerated, you know. But all I'm saying is that these relationships are paid for in blood, and I think that we have a duty as British people, as the British country, to keep establishing a relationship with the Commonwealth, because, you know, we love each other now and that's the way it should be. And this woman here, she's an economics advisor. I think she's an owner of a banking group. She knows her stuff, and she's saying that the latest IMF forecasts show that the major Commonwealth countries have healthy growth prospects in the medium term, significantly better than for major EU countries, and looking to the longer term, they are blessed with favourable demographics. So they're saying their population's going to get much bigger. She's saying, my enthusiasm for the Commonwealth has nothing to do with a romantic attachment to a fading dream of imperial glory. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. Commonwealth countries do not have their best years behind them, as I fear many EU countries do. They have their best years ahead of them. And she says it's mistaken and old-fashioned to regard the Commonwealth as the past. And I agree with her there. We've got to honour our relationship with these people, these countries, and their business costs, their business rates are lower, so their population's booming, their economic forecasts are better, their costs are lower, so they are the future. The Commonwealth is the future, not the EU. And we already have established relationships with the Commonwealth, so I don't know why we would dishonour that relationship and try and move on to the EU. Now let's get more into the actual economics, the day-to-day economics of Britain, what is currently happening in Britain rather than in relationship to the EU. Right, now this is very, very important. Britain was responsible for the invention of, British scientists at Manchester University were responsible for the discovery of this new wonder material, graphene, and George Osborne at the time was going around putting it in his budgets, his budgets, saying that this was going to be the super thing that was going to bring Britain out of the recession. Basically, this is going to be something that we are going to export. Remember when I was saying about the export, and all you have to do is sell more than you buy. So this is the thing that was going to bring Britain out of the recession, according to George Osborne. He was going about saying that in his budgets. He has pinned his hopes of economic recovery on it. He mentioned graphene in the bulk of his autumn statements and budgets, and visited the lab twice in the last few months to handle the black stuff himself. So he was doing kind of media drives based on it, and he was putting it in his budget, saying graphene was going to be the thing that takes the UK out of the recession. Now this is a very important point, because under George Osborne's watch it completely dropped the ball on graphene. How UK wonder substance graphene can't and won't benefit the UK, even although it's considered to be one of the greatest discoveries in science for the last, God knows, 30 years, something like that. Graphene is the thinnest material on Earth, and it's almost 1,000,000 times slimmer than a strand of hair. Almost everything about graphene begs it to be inscribed in legend. The speed and scale of their action, from publishing results in the 2004 to a Nobel Prize 6 years later, so the people who discovered this won a Nobel Prize. What actually happened since then, though, is that our record with graphene has been dismal, and consultants calculate that China has taken out more than 2,200 patents on graphene, the US has taken out more than 1,700, and South Korea 1,200, and we, the country that discovered the UK, has taken out just over 50 patents for the actual design of it. So I know that in a lot of ways we don't like capitalism, but in this particular instance the UK has dropped the ball, and they haven't been capitalistic enough. They haven't actually went out, thought, what can we use graphene for, taken out patents on the things, and this would have completely saved our economy. Go again reiterating that UK appears behind in the race to develop graphene. It is a British scientific breakthrough that George Osborne hoped would play a key role in his attempts to rebalance the economy, but the UK is already trailing well behind Asia in the race to commercially develop graphene, the 20th century wonder material, 21st century. In March's budget, the Chancellor pledged further investment, describing graphene as a great British discovery that we should break the habit of a lifetime with and commercially develop in Britain. So George Osborne has been involved in this. He's been vocally involved in it. He's done media drives on it. He knows all about it. He's pledged that he's going to invest in it, but it's turned out that based on patent applications, the UK barely appears to be in the race to develop the material. We are not even taking out patents. We are not properly developing this thing, and we've had the biggest heads up on it. And George Osborne has been massively invested in this, and Britain has completely dropped the ball on it. And it's probably the biggest one of the biggest scandals, economic scandals in UK history, alongside the financial collapse, but you won't hear about it. The media aren't reporting on it the way that they should do. So the Conservatives have completely dropped the ball on this. Of the 11,000 patents and patent applications worldwide relating to graphene, which was discovered 10 years ago in a physics lab in Manchester, the UK has filed just 101, equivalent to less than 1%. So the people who are going to be making the monies from this is Asian companies and American companies and South Korean companies. So there we go. I couldn't spell it out any clearer for you. The Conservatives are not up to the job of fixing this economy. They had the biggest chance that Britain has possibly ever had to get out of the economy, a better chance than anyone else in the world to get out of it. George Osborne was heavily invested in it, heavily involved in it. He knew everything about it, and he still, under his watch, they still dropped the ball on it. Austerity. 20th of February 2015, they were asking George Osborne about the Grexit, when Greece were threatening, the Syriza government were threatening to come out of Europe, and George Osborne said in an interview that it's a risk to Britain. We need the Eurozone to find a common solution here. At home, we need to go on working through our economic plan, which has kept us safe. So George Osborne is referring to austerity as an economic plan. Now, Britain's got nearly £3 trillion in debt, and we're 100 billion, I think, in the deficit. So we're not even close to paying off the national debt, and he's saying that it's an economic plan. So let's see how well he's doing in his economic plan. Blow for George Osborne as government borrowing rises, sending the country's debt pile to 1.5 trillion. So his borrowing increased by 3.7 billion in the 12 months to October, and this is from November last year, just November last year. So George Osborne's economic plan to pay off the debt, the 1.5 trillion debt that we've not even touched and we're in the deficit, he's actually added to that deficit. So that's his economic plan. That's what he's saying, that we need to stick to this plan. What plan? And it's went up by 150 billion in just a year, the 1.5 trillion. And debt represents 80% of the Britain's entire economic output, and he's saying, that's his plan. So that's why I think that all the other parties are going to stick to austerity. Most of the other parties are saying that they're going to actually increase spending. So if you increase the spending, you're going to increase the deficit and add to the debt, and George Osborne's already adding to the debt. So let's have a look at what people are saying, what they're going to do about the debt coming into 2015, and this is why I think UKIP is the best for Britain. Conservatives are ramming home their long-term economic plan, so I've just went through that. They haven't done that at all, they've added to the deficit. Labour are saying they're going to balance the books by cutting the deficits more slowly than the Conservatives, so and increasing taxes on people and increasing spending. If you're increasing taxes on people, they're going to have less money to put in the private economy, so that means that probably businesses are going to be going under if Labour increase the taxes, which is what most people are predicting, and they're going to cut the deficit more slowly, so the debt will just continue to add up. It went up, what was it? It went up by 150 billion in a year. Anyway, that's how fast it's multiplying. It's exponential, it's almost unpayable. The Liberal Democrats are saying that they are going to get an additional 6 billion from tax rises on high value properties and 6 billion from tax dodgers. Well, they're not going to be able to get the 6 billion on tax dodgers because there's legal tax loopholes, and people who are rich enough to pay accountants to look into these tax loopholes are not stupid enough to let the Lib Dems catch them out, and they're not going to get, if they are getting it again, as the 6 billion more taxes on high value properties. That just means people are having to give more money to the government, and they're having less money in their pockets to actually spend in the shops and on the things that actually make the economy grow. The Green Party do want to deal with the deficit. They want to raise taxes, so again that's taking money out of people's pockets, and they're not going to be able to spend it in the private economy, which is really what makes the economy grow. The private economy makes things grow. The government doesn't make anything grow, so giving them more money is adding to the problem, it's not solving the problem. And they want to increase environmental taxation, so they're going to increase taxation in a whole number of areas, and they're going to bring in those environmental taxes that I've already shown you. All that happens is the big businesses then shut down, they stop operating in the UK, they stop operating in the West, all the jobs are lost, and they just they outsource their jobs to Asia and Africa and China and the Caribbean, wherever it might be. They'll go wherever it takes if they're getting taxed. If they're getting wildly taxed, unfairly taxed, that's all that will happen. So the only people who actually have a viable plan to cut down the deficit is UKIP. UKIP want to reduce the debt by leaving the European Union, which we contribute their 8 billion per annum net, so that's us saving 8 billion if we come out of Europe. They want to cut the foreign aid budget. That's definitely possible. That's a few billion a year, I think, so there we're already cutting the budget. We'll be able to tap into the deficit that way. And they're going to scrap HS2, which is £9 billion. So they're finding, UKIP will be able to find money like that straight away. Other parties are not able to do that. And it's actual real tangible things that can really actually be done. The other people are talking about things that really either can't be done or they're actually going to harm people in their pockets. UKIP aren't going to do that. UKIP are the only party who have a viable plan that can actually get us out of the deficit, and even then it's going to be very, very hard thing to do. And I also believe that UKIP would cut down on government wastage. UKIP are talking about cutting down on administrators in the NHS, middle management in the NHS. I believe that UKIP would be the best party at cutting down government wastage. I think they're the most honest party, and if they find that the government are wasting a lot of money, I think that they will cut it down, whereas other parties won't. The reason that the other parties won't do that is because they're attached to big lobbyists, they're attached to big business, and these big lobbyists and big business are probably the ones who justify the government wastage. We are probably giving a lot of money to big business and big lobbyists just through government wastage, and that's why they do it. They're given, that's how a backdoor way of giving money to their business friends and UKIP aren't connected to big lobbyists. They're not interested in that. So I think from what we can see in 2015, the only people who have an economic plan that can actually be carried out, feasibly be carried out, and actually have an effect on the deficit is UKIP. And that is the reasons that I think on the economy, UKIP are best for your vote in 2015. Thank you. Bye.